Good evening, everybody. How's it going? It's me, Comic Crack. Microphone, yes. At late night, I just finished reading something and had the urge to share. Um, it's late here. It is 20 to 1 in the morning. So I doubt anybody's going to show up in person here, but watching on the replay, I couldn't resist doing a quick video. Got a few things to talk about. Probably won't have a chance to tomorrow at all, not even tomorrow night. We've got a pretty busy day ahead of us. My brother's in town, which is great. Been hanging out. He brought some fantastic Chinese snacks, some Chinese barbecue mixes, some Chinese booze. I've drank a lot of Baijiu, and it's a beautiful thing. So let's talk about some stuff. Maybe let's save that for last. So let's start with the reading that I did that kind of, it's funny when stuff just kind of clicks in place. I've had the first 4 issues of Ted McKeever's Transit for quite a long time in some way, shape, or form, whether it was an issue here or issue there. It's one of those books that I never see out there. So I've been missing the 5th issue forever, and I found it the other day in a dollar bin of all places. I found the 5th issue of this, and I found the 12th issue of Eddy Current. The Eddy Current series, I need quite a few issues of. I think I only have about 4 of them. I do have the Eddy Current hardcover that collects everything. I have the Transit hardcover and I have the Metropole hardcover, but nothing beats getting it in floppy. So this is a Vortex comic from what year was the first one released? Let's see. I want to say the Golden Age. 1987, a year after the Golden Age. So 1987 is when it was released. The first issue, he had done a mini comic of it. We'll take a look inside right away. He had done a mini comic. So this is McKeever's first work. He did this, and it looks like at about issue 3 or so, they start talking about Eddy Current. So I'm not sure if he finished this and it was just waiting to get published, and then he was working on Eddy Current, which was coming up, or what was going on. Once I kind of finished this, it feels like he was working on these things simultaneously because there's a couple of interesting points. So what happened with the single issues, focus, what happened with the single issues is it only went to issue 5. There was an issue 6 that was planned. It was never released in single issue format. So when the Transit hardcover came out from Shadowline Image, good morning, Gore Vidal. How are you, man? When the book came out from Shadowline in 2008, I think. Yeah, 2008 is the printing on these. They're beautiful copies, by the way. There was 3 collections put out. They're a little small, but they'll do because it's just nice to have this stuff collected. They included in the back the final issue, and it's it's amazing. It ties things together in such an incredible way. So, man, I've got a lot to say about this. I'm going to try to organize my thoughts here. Let's start from the beginning. Ted McKeever puts together a mini comic of this first issue. His style is a world different than what it starts to look like, even starting with issue number 2 here. So I don't know the timeline on how long previous to it getting published he had this, but he went to a convention to kind of shop it around and was told by Archie Goodwin that he loved it. Not something that they could do at that time, but you need to shop this around to people. In the hardcover, he mentions a number of like 95 different people he sent it out to, and he had 2 responses. One of them was from Vortex. When he signs up with Vortex, they put him in with an editor who's never worked in comics previously. So McKeever coming into comics, never having worked in comics, getting paired up with someone who'd never done editing for comics. Lou Stathis is his name. And so he was very, very skeptical and not really looking forward to it. When they finally met, they realized they had quite a lot in common and they hit it off pretty quick. And at the end of the hardcover, it's kind of nice. He talks about how they became really, really tight. They became really, really good friends. He'd passed away when this was written. He'd already passed away, and how he missed him dearly. So it had a huge impact in kind of helping him, because he talks about Lou's type of editing that wasn't necessarily, or what he later realized wasn't the norm. It was really about empowering McKeever to kind of, it was more about motivation to get him to work on the stories and motivating him to write the next chapter, as opposed to, hey, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense. He kind of let him go and kind of worked with him to give him the confidence to edit his own work. This stuff here is amazing. Like this here really reminds me of a panel out of Ambush Bug. There's a quality to his line that's always been there, but it's really apparent in this first issue. How much, man, how different he was. I mean, these short, squat characters are not McKeever characters, but the world and everything is so McKeever that it really works in some strange way. So he has it's almost like a Dragon Ball Z type of look to these characters here. So our main character is Spud. He's a graffiti artist. He accidentally spray paints a cop, and the cop, we also get a little Vaughn Baudet there as a train goes by. Yeah, Giffen, like, thank you. That's a good reminder. The name, yes. Archie Goodwin always had good editorial judgment. Absolutely. Daryl D, how are you doing, man? Nice to see you. Yes, and Giffen, like, right there. So this cop and him get into it. He ends up throwing our guy Spud down on the tracks. It looks like Spud gets hit by a train. Where are we here? We jumped ahead a little bit here as I was going through. So we think that Spud gets hit by a train in this part right here as it comes towards him. It's kind of a silly sort of gag. There's a misunderstanding here. He's trying to ask him what he meant by a term that he used. We then jump to a mayoral race where this Reverend Gizin, I think his name is, or Jizin maybe, is up for election, and he's kind of in bed with this shadowy figure. It's written pretty nicely here. The Union City Building, 38th floor, office of Vincent C. Tron, City Commissioner. Boss Tron is a big man, both in size and power. He can't control the former. He thoroughly enjoys the latter. If you can't see him too well, that's his intention. I really like that, because then the rest of the time he's kind of in these shadows, these very noirish shadows. That is a McKeever mouth if I ever saw one. You can really see some touches of him. So we get some sort of political intrigue, also an angle. I don't think I've ever seen McKeever do an angle like that since this point. Seems very unusual for him. Makes me wonder what he was looking at to create this first issue, and then what he saw to immediately transition to what you'll see in issue 2, and really just accelerates through these 5 issues. But again, more Giffen there as well too. I mean, that just screams it to me for sure. So so we get that little aside to another storyline. The cop gets in shit basically for killing a perp because he can't find him. We then cut to our man Spud, who is hanging on desperately to the side of a train as he's barreling down the tracks, hoping that he doesn't stop too abruptly to send him flying. So he tries to get the driver's attention, tapping on the window. Of course, he breaks and then slams him into the wall. Our man is beaten up, but he's still there, down on the tracks against the wall there. And then he hears some voices above him, and a body comes floating down onto the tracks in front of him, and a gun gets pitched. We realize that it is this Reverend Gizin, Gizin or Jism, I can't remember. Let's just call him Jism, Reverend Jism, that's dispatched with this body. And then we meet our third storyline, which is a guy, I believe his name is Joe, in jail. We meet him in jail. We only get a little taste of his character, not too much to tell us anything about him other than he's in prison. Obviously, he's going to play some big important role in it, but at this point, we're not given anything. So, and it just kind of goes from there. So it's this nice balance of this kind of political intrigue, this sort of inner city underworld dwelling. There's crime syndicates, there's murder that takes place, all sorts of stuff. So such a good book. There was moments in issue, I think it was in issue 2 or 3, I don't remember where, I started feeling a little bit lost with all the plots going on, but it came together really nicely at the end. And the thing that kind of amazed me the most is he must have already been thinking of Metropol. So already here's our Spud, and you can see how much he's changed from that first issue. So that's why it makes me think that there's a huge lag between when he created stuff, even though this was published 2 months later, still in 1987. I'm wondering when it was. So this one is 87, his signature on there. I wonder if there's a signature. I wonder if McKeever signs and dates this one. He does not. Also, use of Zipatone in the backgrounds here, which is another thing that I don't really remember. I don't associate it with McKeever. Yeah, no, unfortunately, no signature and date on this, because it feels like it's a couple of years difference between these two, and he's come into contact with something else that's kind of really driven him to create what becomes his very, very distinct voice. So I don't know if I'll tell. I don't feel like necessarily going through page by page story arc, the whole thing. What does happen though towards the end, and I'll kind of skip to it here. I'll just pause on this cover though, because this cover is my favorite out of the run. This is a gorgeous, and again, like you can see McKeever with his minimal use of line and giving his characters this distinct look. Really utilized incredibly well. This is our Reverend Jism here on the front. So when we get to issue, let's have a look at issue 4 here. It's around this time, yeah, this issue, it's around this time that this issue feels 100% like McKeever. So these cityscapes, the heavy use of blacks, this is what I see when I see him. Oh, there is a very strange top panel with really uncharacteristic buildings, but quickly transitions into a cityscape that you become more used to with his style. But it's things like this. It's his ability to use all of these pages with all of this black and then throw in a panel like this that's very, very minimal as far as not only the line itself and the detail, but just that space, just using that white space for everything. Incredible. And his figures are so abstract at times, and the way he cuts into them in the panels, again, more heavy duty McKeever, these 2 pages. Look at all the black on that page, man. It's unreal. Let's see if we can find a panel that becomes much different here. It might show up better in the hardcover because we're going to look at the final issue in the hardcover. Even stuff like this, maybe not abstract, but just that kind of frame, that figure. So eventually our man Spud gets brainwashed, and they're turning him into Brother Ebb. is they want to kind of bring him into this cult. And that's when everything starts to twist and turn, and it really feeds into Metropol. So if you know the book Eddie Current is kind of this guy that comes into it, that's in an insane asylum, escapes an insane asylum, and it's a 12-issue run, and it represents 12 hours of Eddie Current's life. Now Eddie Current eventually makes his way into Metropol. When our man Spud in here kind of gets out of this sort of trap or this brainwashing cult, he's confused about who he is. He runs into some people that know his name, but he can't associate it with it. So he rips off his name tag and is kind of replaying the name Spud in his head. And then he says, no, I think my name is Nochard. And in Metropol, the main character is Jasper Nochard. So that blew me away. I didn't realize that. It had been forever since I've read the hardcover. I don't actually know if I've ever read the entirety of Transit, because that was mind-blowing. So at the same time he's working on Eddie Current, which appears in Metropol, he also kind of changes the reality of this character, or the identity of this character, and turns him into Jasper Nochard. This has a very apocalyptic feel to it by the end. As the power goes out, a train runs off the tracks. Our character Joe is accidentally shot and killed a subway car driver, or a train driver, and it goes off the tracks, hitting their little power plant that shuts everything down in the city. As the Joker would say, everybody would start going nuts. These pages are fucking incredible. Here's our kind of city commissioner here with flames behind him, just reveling in the chaos. He wants the world to burn down. He's kind of portrayed here as a devil, which also makes an appearance in Metropol. So it's amazing to me how he blends all of these different books into his own mini universe that runs through a few series. There's also reference, there's a woman in here. They mention the phrase junk culture. In one of the characters says junk culture, and one of the women that's with him looks almost identical to the twins that show up in his Junk Culture miniseries, which came out after Metropol. So it feels like he really was brimming with all of these ideas at this time, and you're getting little bits and pieces that eventually get fleshed out into further stories, and it's kind of fucking incredible. Yes, we are. Hello, Chaos and Comics. Yes, Ted McKeever. I just finished reading Transit, and it kind of blew my mind with how good it was. So in the final issue, in the hardcover here, we get the unpublished final issue, Chapter 6. There was supposed to be a Chapter 6. Never came out through Vortex or anybody else. And this is Metropol. Like, this is his Metropol style. Plastic Forks was also in there too, but I didn't catch any references to Plastic Forks. I think Plastic Forks came just before Metropol. I mean, look at this cityscape here. It's beautiful. Has that kind of graffiti kind of quality to it. I don't know if it's because of those extraneous lines there and the kind of melty, it almost looked like this melty abstract quality of these buildings and things that I think work well. And this is full on, again, demonic McKeever with the millions of kind of thin teeth spread across his gums there. So this full on turns into an apocalyptic, the city's in flames, everybody's going down, good and bad, angels and demons starting to fight on the streets, which is the entirety of the world in Metropol. Amazing. Like I said, I'm very much taken by this. I've always loved McKeever, but I think something has been resparked since I checked out that Junk Culture, which I wasn't super keen on. I didn't think it was that impressive. Just finding this issue, I'm fully invested again, and I desperately want to find the rest of Eddie Current because I want to sit and read those in single issue form. It's fine reading in the book, but I want to see the single issues because I want to get the I want to get the editorials. I want to get the letters pages. I want to see what else is in those books. Yeah, Plastic Forks. I mean, if this is 86, it probably would have been kind of maybe 1990. It probably would have been right at the turning point of the late 80s, early 90s there, Gore. But I don't remember the exact date. They didn't do no, because that one just does Eddy Current. They didn't do, Shadowline Image didn't do a Plastic Forks hardcover. I'm assuming because that was on Epic. Was it Epic or was it just Marvel? I think it was Epic, which wouldn't quite make sense because wasn't Epic all creator owned as well? Wasn't that their shtick with it? So anyway, Ted McKeever, Transit, brilliant, love it. On to a couple of other things. Maybe we'll save that one for last. I'll talk about this one very briefly. My daughter is a big fan of a lot of the Disney princess and villain type of movies. So this is a new series that's coming out. I put it on the pull list, on her pull list rather. Maleficent. There's only been 2 issues so far from Dynamite. Not the greatest read. It's okay. It's an okay read. I find it's really light. Even she said when we finished reading both issues, she said that it went really fast. She was kind of disappointed, and so there's not much dialogue. They try to do this mood. This is Sue Lee, and the cover is by Jay Lee, so I don't know if they're related or what the relation is, but it's written and illustrated by Sue Lee. Some pretty nice looking stuff. The story is okay. A brother who's run away from home, basically. His older brother is set to be the new king. He doesn't want any part of royal life, and he wants to go and be an adventurer. So his first person that he comes in contact with is Maleficent. He thinks he can kind of pull a fast one on her. She catches on and turns him into a wolf, so he can then kind of prowl the wilderness for eternity and get into as many ventures as he wants to. So I feel like it was trying to be kind of that storyteller type of vibe, but it wasn't quite hitting it. It was good enough, but it just felt kind of really short on story and short on dialogue, which isn't necessarily always a bad thing to kind of keep to keep a comic moving. But in this case, I think it work to its detriment, so I mean, we'll keep on it. I think it's only going to be a mini series. I have no idea. And the thing that I wanted to focus on most out of this was this is the height of stupidity of multiple covers. So at the back we get our usual bunch of ads. I have never seen anything like this. It's fucking mind-boggling. We get another one for another Disney book, Scar. So we get all those ads. And then we get the cover galleries for this single issue. So there's page 1 of cover galleries. There's page 2 of cover galleries just for this first issue. There's page 3 of the cover galleries. There's page 4 of the cover galleries. There's page 5 of the cover galleries. 5 pages of fucking different covers for one fucking comic. That blows me away. Retailer exclusives, incentives, A covers, B covers. Hell, man, there's cover Z, there's cover ZA, ZB, ZC, ZD. It's insane. I've never seen anything like that before in my life. Boggles my mind. Yeah, I mean, the comics aren't too bad. The colors, sorry. Hello, Comics with Smurf. I hear you. There's something that's kind of lacking. Like, I find it worked really well on this first page. I enjoyed it, heading from some kind of serene pastures and deeper into the woods. Tells a pretty good story on one page, even though it's clear what the story is going to be. It's not quite a mystery. people know the character, but in other spots, you're totally right. I don't think it helps it very much. And again, it's this American manga type of style to it. Dynamite's whole marketing direction is massive amounts of covers. I'm just happy it's not a Vampirella book. Yeah, they do the same with Vampirella, right? So, like I said, we'll continue it. Neither of us are overly impressed with it. It's just I think it's gonna be one of those books that's just okay. But we'll stick with it. You know, I think she's got this and My Little Pony on her pull list. So I'll gladly keep picking that up for her until we find something else. Another read that I had this week, I won't go through all the details in this one either. Another read that I was pretty damn impressed with. It's a book that I've always heard about. This is The Horror of Collier County by Rich Tommaso, 5-issue miniseries. Not quite sure what took place in this book. I feel like I need to revisit it, and it feels like it's drawing from a number of different areas that I'm not 100% positive on. But one of the things that he does with this one is the front cover and the back cover and the inside cover, they're all part of the story, especially as you get further into it. They play out right the way through to the back cover of the book. And I think that's used very well. The style is gorgeous. I really love it. The lettering that takes place for these kind of title cards, I think, is really fantastic as well, too. A really fun story. We get a woman and her daughter going down to Florida, I believe, to hang out with her mom. We later learn that her husband has recently died, and she is kind of not able to kind of cope in New York by herself. So the plan is maybe to come down to Florida to stay a while and eventually maybe stay forever so she can be closer to her mom. She can kind of get some help. She can get some work and kind of start a new life. Everything is telling her that Florida does not want her there. Right from the beginning, she's stuck on the roof of her car with her daughter as there's an alligator snapping at the bottom. The neighbors are staring at her blankly, watching her every move from the comfort of their home. So there's this real unwelcome vibe. And it gets to a point where you're not sure if any of it is real, if anybody else sees it. You know, is this an I see dead people kind of scenario where she's the only one that's seeing this stuff? Or is it or is it real? Is it really something that's going on? And this particular section of Florida is out to get her and any outsider who wants to kind of try to trespass, because she does run into another character who's kind of having some similar experiences with people following him and things. And there's a lot of I think, is that an Outer Limits episode or is that a Twilight Zone episode? I can't remember which. That one, the plastic surgeon, they take off the bandages. Oh, you're horrific. And he looks kind of human, doesn't end up looking like anybody else. So there's a lot of kind of references like that of old kind of sci-fi type of movies and TV shows that she's watching. Florida is particular about who they want if we listen to their political leaders. Yeah, Twilight Zone. Thank you, Gore. Yeah, Twilight Zone. So the only time I would say that the continuing the story on the back cover doesn't work is with this first issue. I feel like he really gets a handle on it starting on issue number 2. We sort of have this big reveal as she's being chased. She's chasing somebody rather who was spying on her. She ends up dropping through these bushes and looking and saying, "Oh my God." So she's seeing something. And then on the back, we get the dog's reaction because she's dragging the dog along with her as well, with an "oh my God." And then we start in with the next story. Where can I put this? And we start in with the next issue. where I guess that's the continuation of what she saw. So it's, oh my God, is in, I'm about to get hit by a truck. I guess I was thinking more of having some sort of reveal. But now, actually, now that I'm giving this a second look, it's still a nice little transition. So again, even on the inside front cover, she dives out of the way as the truck goes by, gets splashed and gets soaked, calls him an asshole, and then kind of continues home. So pretty amazing. And I really love the art quite a bit. I give this book a ton of credit if it avoids mentioning alligators. Yeah, no, it doesn't. For issue 1, or flamingos, Chaos in Comics, but a Miami Vice reference would be fine. Absolutely. So overall, it was an enjoyable read, more for kind of the storytelling and the art than necessarily the story itself. Because like I said, I feel like I got a little lost somewhere along the way. So great. Again, one that I've always heard about. Incredible to find the entire series at once. The bonus of those comic Facebook groups in town, man. Like, what would I do without those guys? Those ones go in here. And finally, but not even close to last but not least, because another one that kind of blew my mind this week. So I got my order from Harry Nordlinger from Vacuum Decay. I'll start with this. Got myself a Vacuum Decay t-shirt, which I've been looking at on his website for about a year. So take a very good look at that image there, because your boy bought the original art for that as well too. So here we go. Here's the, because it's this 2-color print, there's the first part of it there. And then this is the second, so we get that red blob and stuff. So incredible deal on this original art. Like I said, I've looked, he sells a lot of pages on his website as well too. And I've always kind of eyeballed this because I love this t-shirt design, and I love seeing kind of the 2 parts of the art there. Take it out of the bag so you can get a better, less glossy look. Also seeing kind of the different styles that he's using here, this pointillist type of thing, and seeing some of the blue line where he was sketching out some ideas and mapping out the individual little panels there in the teeth of these germs is really great. The extra added bonus for this was the back of the second page here. On the back of the second page is a page from what turns out to be one of the stories in this little photocopied zine. I didn't realize that. I had no idea. So it was a total fluke that it happens to be a page from the book. So that's an incredible bonus to buying these pages of art. So you can see some stuff pasted on the page there amongst all that black. Yeah, this is the story Darcy. It's a flip book, this little zine. Marcia, both are about relationships gone awry. So Marcia on one side, Darcy on the other side. Almost put on, kind of printed on heavy construction paper, red construction paper, but still kind of in the world of his horror anthologies. Nothing ends well for either of our men in these 2 stories. Really nice stuff. He's got a few of these kind of one-man zines. I'm assuming they're all printed the same on this heavy-duty stock. So here's the page that I have presented in the book here. So incredible stuff. I can see how people get into the original art game. Love having this, love seeing his stuff up close. And then the other thing that I got from him was issue 6 of Vacuum Decay. And with this issue, this is definitely tops. This series is one of the best kind of anthologies I've read in a long time, and for sure one of the best horror anthologies I've read. And easily one of the best things I've read all year. This issue specifically, I feel I don't have the entire run yet. I'm missing a couple of issues. This one really ramps up the horror, and this one really kind of goes into the more kind of splatter and type of world, slasher type of movie almost. What I love about this series, it feels like it's tailor made for me, being steeped in these 80s comics that I keep finding in the bins and that kind of style. It's all over this book, but we have some really grim stories here. A sister is visited by her sister in the house, saying she's fine. She's found a way to deal with everything that ails her. Whatever you do, though, don't go into my room. And she kind of disappears. So, of course, the sister goes into the room and finds her hanging. So a very kind of grim opener, which really sets the scene for the rest of it. Harry Nordlinger next. A little boy, his mom and dad comes home and says, we have a few people coming over. Whatever you do, don't leave your room. Everything is fine. No matter what you hear out here, don't leave your room. Everything is good. And of course, like any good child, you have to go and investigate. I won't spoil that. I won't spoil any more of these stories because I do feel like you need to read them. We get Pat Aluzio in here as well with a nice short little story. A voice calling from a deep cavernous pit saying he's got Nintendo. Come on down. Let's play Nintendo, fellas. I've even got the latest issue of Nintendo Power. Come on down. So again, a completely different style from what we've seen so far. The artist that kind of has captured me in this one, though, is Chloe Burt doing this story, formatted a little differently. So I'm assuming that has everything to do with the size that the original art was created, that didn't shrink down properly to fill the page. Maybe it's a choice, but it's a really kind of clean, neat style that presents really, really well. Really well here. We get some references to painters there, or painting there. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. Again, I won't show you any more pages from that one because I don't want to spoil it. And then I say that and then turn the page, and another highlight was this buffet by an artist, Nick Ruby, with a gorgeous style as well too. Again, it's this raw kind of 80s independent or underground or whatever you want to call it, black and white explosion type of style. This one is especially grisly as this guy's at a buffet where they're eating a woman that's laid out on a table, cutting into her. So really visceral and really disturbing little story, actually, mostly because of the kind of graphic nature of it. Matt Stewart with an unusual little story here called Worm, The Worm at the Core. Yeah. Ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's a completely absurd story. I really enjoyed this one as well too, but I won't say too much more than that. Yeah. With quite a almost punchline. Yeah. Cameron Zavala up next with a slasher story, a serial killer type of story. Unreal. Nervous, I think, is what that says. Nervous. One of the things that I found incredible here is this second panel, as he's kidnapped this woman and is stabbing her, and the repeated use of the hand in the panel, I think, works wonders. That whole panel there is incredibly violent. I mean, the whole story is incredibly violent, but that one panel really puts it over the edge, I thought. Yeah, again, I won't show you because the next page is equally disturbing and grotesque. And this is one of those stories that kind of every single page, it ramps it up even further. The blood-soaked snake is here to haunt your fever dreams. And let's get the credit for this one right. I think this is Dylan Muldrew is the artist's name on this. Strong opener there. It almost looks like a panel out of John Zorn's Naked City project. That artist is, I'm blanking on that artist's name, that Japanese artist, but really reminds me of that there. And last, but the one I was kind of most excited for was another strip by David Enos. We've looked at David Enos a couple of times here on the channel. So a new strip by David Enos called Cigarettes. Great story. Maybe not my favorite from David, but it's always good to see his stuff. I love every page of this. Of his art style. I've contacted him on social media on Instagram to see if he has pages for sale from his previous books. I haven't gotten a response, so I don't want to kind of push it. You never know with some of these artists. I don't want to necessarily just keep bugging him. I put the message out there. I'm sure he'll see it at some point, and then we get a Harry Nordlinger again final page, just like he has in the other ones. So Vacuum Decay number 6. This is the first printing. Apparently he's sold out. No, not Junji Ito. I believe it was a female artist, but don't quote me on that. If you look up John Zorn's band Naked City and look at some of the artwork on some of the albums, I'm sure there'll be some credits. It'll stand out to you. It'll be apparent, the style when you see it. So the first printing has sold out. Harry's already said on Twitter that he's going to do another printing of this. I cannot recommend this series enough. I know I say that about a lot of things, but this is one of those books that you can get your hands on. Get your hands on any of the issues if you're fortunate enough to live in a place like Portland or probably New York or San Francisco. Who knows? I'm sure there's shops around you that are carrying these things. Yes, the price tag is a bit steep. It's $10, but you're getting a really, really thick book here with a lot of incredible stories. Obviously, you have to like horror. I would say this one, so far out of the ones I've read, has really been on the more extreme side. But don't let that stop you, because it's a whole. It's kind of taken as a whole, the incredible artists, and yes, Comics with Smurf. This has got a wild collection of artists, a wild collection indeed, but they all sort of fit in that niche of the styles that I just respond to the most, right? I love this kind of stuff. Yeah, so there you go. There's your list of contributors there, if it'll focus. A nice credits page there. So I'm going to need to fill in the gaps at some point, get the other remaining few issues. I think that's it, everybody. That's all that I read. I'm starting to work my way through Counterparts. The art is gorgeous. I'm finding the story almost unreadable. I don't know if it's the way the text is written, if it's the size of the font, if it's the lettering. I'm not really sure. But there's something that is almost impenetrable about this so far. I'm only into issue number 1. I will finish it eventually, but it's not off to a great start. Minus the art, it might be one of those books where I just stop reading panels and focus on the art, because it's incredible. So we'll look at that one probably next weekend. Anyway, thanks very much, everybody. Read Ted McKeever, buy some Vacuum Decay, support independent artists, check out Domino, support these guys, especially somebody like Harry, who's really fantastic at keeping his stuff in print so it doesn't become this kind of, I don't know, this lost gem that you feel like you'll never get your hands on. You can get your hands on his stuff. And I kind of hope that as much as I love this, I'm curious to see if he'll kind of broaden what kinds of things he does and what kinds of things he publishes. But this Vacuum Decay could go on for 20 issues, 30 issues, and I'd be there for every single one because it's really goddamn strong. So thanks very much, Harry. If you do end up watching this, I love it. The shirt is badass. And I love the original art. So thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you next week. Have a good week.